The night was supposed to be perfect. So perfect, it felt unreal. Wind brushed across the rooftop of the tallest tower in Chicago, warm for late autumn, carrying the faint scent of the lake. Lights glittered far below them like fallen stars. Gareth Edward had spent a month planning this night, rehearsing words he'd never imagined himself saying. Imagining the exact way Rachel's eyes would widen, the way her breath would catch, the way her lips might tremble when he opened the small velvet box, now burning a hole in his jacket pocket. She had just finished her shift at the nursing home, hair slightly messy from the long day scrubs exchanged for a simple black dress he'd picked out for her, though she didn't know that. She always laughed at him when he bought her things, saying, "You spoil too easily." Tonight he hoped she would forgive him again. Rachel Williams walked onto the rooftop with that tired, breathtaking smile, soft, luminous, still somehow shy around him, despite everything they had survived together. For a moment, Gareth forgot the wind, the speech, the ring. He forgot fear, legacy, everything. He only saw her. "Gareth," she whispered, blinking at the glowing canopy of lanterns he'd set up. "What is all this?" He swallowed, nerves tightening in his chest. This woman, this brilliant and beautiful woman, had changed his existence more than all the money, power, and victories he'd collected since building his empire from the ground up. "This," he said, "taking her hands is me being sure." Rachel exhaled shakily, the kind of exhale that came from someone who had never been chosen before, never truly honestly chosen. The wind fluttered her curls, catching the city light in streaks of gold. He wanted to memorize her exactly like this. He knelt. Rachel covered her mouth with both hands, shaking. Mary. That was when the sirens tore through the night. At first it was one, then three, then a dozen. The blue and red lights burst over the rooftop in violent flashes, swallowing the golden lantern glow in a wave of panic. Gareth jerked his head toward the stairway as police stormed up, boots pounding, radios blaring. Rachel stumbled back. "Gareth!" 4 officers rushed forward, forming a wall between them. "Gareth." Edward, the lead officer, announced, voice echoing across the rooftop. "You are under arrest for financial fraud and embezzlement from the Edward Trust." Rachel gasped. "What?" "No, there must be a mistake." Gareth rose slowly, raising his hands, but his eyes never left hers. Rachel stood, frozen hands trembling, eyes wide with disbelief. The officer seized Gareth's wrists and snapped cold steel around them before he could speak. "I didn't do this," Gareth said urgently, voice low, desperate. "Rachel, listen to me. Rachel, look at me." But the rooftop had exploded into chaos. Photographers he had never invited swarmed through the stairway. Someone must have tipped them off. Shutters clicked like a firing squad. Billionaire arrested during interracial proposal. White empire heir caught in scandal with black single mother. He could already imagine the headlines. Rachel pushed against the officers, trying to get to him, voice cracking. "Gareth, what's happening? What are they talking about?" He twisted enough to see her, really see her. The fear, the humiliation, the heartbreak. He wished he could hold her shield, her silence, the cameras, burn the world if he had to. Instead, he forced out the only words that mattered. "It's not me, I swear. Take care of the kids. Don't let anyone near them until we know what this is." Gareth. But the officers pulled him away. The rooftop doors slammed open. He was shoved into the back of a squad car, Rachel's broken silhouette shrinking behind glass and flashing lights. The door shut, the lanterns flickered, and the perfect night turned to ash. An hour later, the story detonated across every major news outlet. Rachel sat curled on the couch inside their apartment, Isaiah and Zoe tucked into her arms. She had run home the moment they released Gareth from holding. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. The TV played the breaking news on loop. Billionaire heir arrested in fraud scheme moments before proposing to black single mother. Controversial interracial romance tied to financial scandal. Heirs of Edward dynasty condemn son's behavior. She didn't mean to look, but social media was a minefield she walked into anyway. She's using him. This is what happens when rich white men lose their minds. She trapped him with her kids. Gold digger. Rachel's chest tightened until she couldn't breathe. Zoe clung to her waist, tiny fingers digging into her shirt. "Mommy, they're saying we're a mistake." "What does that mean?" the little girl whispered. "It doesn't mean anything." Rachel kissed her hair, holding her tight. "You hear me? Nothing. Those people say is real." But later, when the children were asleep and she stood alone by the window, she let the tears fall freely. Because words did hurt, and some wounds lasted. Gareth finally returned close to midnight. His face was hard pale with fury simmering under his skin. Rachel opened the door before he could knock. "Are you okay?" she breathed. "I'm fine." There was no evidence to hold me. He stepped inside, voice taut with barely controlled rage. It was a setup. A public one. Someone wanted me humiliated. Rachel's lips trembled. Who would do something like that? And why now? He looked up at her with eyes that suddenly looked older. "My father." She blinked. "Richard. He warned me months ago. He told me if I didn't end our relationship, he'd destroy everything I built." Gareth's laugh was humorless. "I thought he meant my business. My public standing, not this." Rachel pressed a hand to her mouth. "Because I'm black. Because you're not white, not from a wealthy family, not someone he can parade at country clubs." Gareth took her hands. "Because you're everything he despises and everything I love." She shook her head, overwhelmed. "This is too much, Gareth. Too much. I can't let you ruin your life because of me." He stepped closer, cupping her cheek with his still shaking hand. "Rachel, you didn't ruin anything. You saved me." But she looked away, tears racing down her face. "Your investors are panicking. Your board wants answers. Reporters are stalking our building. My children saw hateful things about themselves tonight. And this arrest, it will go away," he cut in. "You don't know that. I do." His hands framed her face gently but firmly. "And even if it doesn't, I'm not leaving you. I'm not leaving the kids. I'm not giving my father what he wants." Rachel squeezed her eyes shut. "I don't know if love is enough for this kind of world." Gareth's voice softened, cracked. "Then let me make it enough. Let me carry what you can't." For a long moment they stood there, two hearts beating fast, afraid of losing what they found. Rachel whispered, "Are you sure? Are you sure you love me enough for this?" Gareth leaned his forehead against hers, breathing her in. "I love you enough to fight the whole world, and I will." Later that night, after Rachel finally fell asleep beside him, still trembling from the shock, Gareth lay awake staring at the ceiling. His father had crossed a line he never believed possible. Not because Richard Edward cared about crime, but because he cared about bloodlines, appearances, power, whiteness. And Gareth had betrayed every expectation by loving a black woman with 2 children from a man who walked away. A woman stronger than any legacy he'd been groomed to inherit. A woman he didn't know how to live without anymore. But something darker moved beneath his ribs. If his father was willing to orchestrate a public arrest tonight, what would he orchestrate next? A smear campaign, a leak of private information, a custody attack on the children, or something far, far worse. Gareth tightened his arm around Rachel, pulling her closer as if he could shield her from the future by sheer force of will. But he knew deep down a storm was forming, and they were standing at the eye of it. He had proposed tonight, not because the timing was perfect, but because he'd felt time running out. Now lying awake with Rachel breathing softly against his chest, he understood something chilling. His father wasn't done. Tonight was only the opening move, and whatever came next would push them into battles that love alone might not be enough to win. Still, Gareth vowed he would win, no matter the cost. At dawn, a soft knock sounded at their door, too early for neighbors and too discreet for paparazzi. Gareth rose, heart thudding. Rachel stirred. "Who is it?" He didn't answer. He opened the door to find an envelope on the floor, plain unmarked, except for 2 words written in elegant handwriting he recognized instantly. "This is only the beginning." Gareth stared at it, jaw clenching. The war had officially started, and he had no idea just how many pieces of their lives were about to get dragged into it. Gareth didn't sleep after finding the envelope. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the 2 words written in his father's handwriting. Each stroke of the ink, a stone dropped into the still water of his chest. This is only the beginning. Rachel slept curled against the pillow, still warm from where he'd been. Her lashes trembled with dreams. He wished he could see dreams where he wasn't being dragged away in handcuffs, where she still looked at him with uncomplicated trust. But morning light always revealed what night tried to hide. And today, it revealed fear. He watched her breathe, memorizing the rise and fall of her chest, the way a soldier memorizes the shape of home before going to war. Because that was what this had become, a war. One his father had declared. And Gareth wasn't naive enough to think Richard Edward would be satisfied with humiliation. Not when Rachel and the children were involved. Not when Gareth had rejected everything the Edward dynasty expected from him. He folded the note into his pocket, stood and went to make coffee. He knew he wouldn't drink. Rachel woke to the sound of cupboard doors opening softly, as if Gareth was trying not to disturb her. She sat up slowly, her body still heavy from fear and shock. The rooftop proposal that never happened replayed in her head in quiet, painful fragments. His trembling smile, the lanterns, the ring she never saw. She pressed her fingers to her lips. She wasn't supposed to dwell on the moment things fell apart, but her heart kept drifting back. Not to the arrest, not to the police lights, not to the humiliation, but to the look on his face before everything went dark. He had looked hopeful, fragile, almost young. She rose from the bed and wrapped herself in a cardigan before walking into the kitchen. Gareth stood barefoot on the cold tile floor, pouring coffee into a mug without noticing it was overflowing. His eyes were somewhere else entirely. "Hey," she whispered. He startled, blinking hard. "Rachel. Good morning. I'll clean it up." She crossed the kitchen, gently touching his wrist. "It's okay. Look at me." He did, and she saw it, the storm he was holding back behind his eyes. "What happened?" she asked softly. Gareth hesitated, not because he didn't trust her, but because he didn't know how to tell her the truth without breaking something fragile between them, something he had spent months nurturing slowly, carefully. Finally, he pulled the folded envelope from his pocket. Rachel's stomach tightened. "Is that from him?" Gareth's voice carried a dangerous quiet. "He came here, or sent someone, early this morning." She took the envelope with trembling fingers, opened it, read the message. Only 2 words, but they felt like a curse. "What does it mean?" she whispered. Gareth swallowed. "It means he's not finished." She sank into a chair, gripping the edge as if the floor had tilted. The morning light thinned, turning cold. "Gareth, I don't know how to keep the kids safe from a man like your father." His chair scraped softly as he moved closer. "You're not doing this alone. I won't let him get near them, but he already has." She lifted the note. "He's telling you he can reach us whenever he wants." Gareth's jaw tightened. That same tightening she'd seen during the worst moments when Isaiah was bullied at school, when gossip columns dissected her life, when the world tried to shrink her into a stereotype she refused to be. "I'm going to fix this," he said. "By yourself?" she asked, voice breaking. "Gareth, I can't watch you be destroyed by him, and I can't watch him hurt you because of me." His hand closed over hers. "You're not the reason he's doing this. I am. I chose you. I chose this family, and he wants to punish me for it. That doesn't make it easier. No, but it makes it worth fighting for." She looked at him, then really looked at the man who had built an empire from nothing, who had adored her children long before asking for her heart, who had given up the safety of privilege for the uncertainty of love. It terrified her, because love like that always came with consequences. Later that morning, Gareth sat in his home office staring at financial reports flickering across his screen. 3 investment partners had already suspended their involvement based on last night's scandal. The board had requested an emergency meeting. His CFO left 3 voicemails asking for a strategy statement. He ignored all of it. Instead, he reopened an old file he hadn't touched in months. Legal adoption pathway, prelim. Draft. A file meant for a future he planned to build quietly, carefully, after proposing to Rachel. He traced Isaiah's name with his cursor, then Zoe's. He'd memorized the paperwork long ago. He'd imagined the day he could sign it. But after last night, after that envelope, he wondered if signing those papers would put a target on their backs. A knock sounded on the door. Rachel stepped inside. "You didn't come eat breakfast." "I wasn't hungry." "Gareth, talk to me." He closed the laptop. Not fast enough. She'd seen the file. Her breath hitched. "You were already planning." "Yes," he said before she could finish. "Before last night. Before all of this." Rachel sat slowly on the edge of the desk. "You want to adopt them that much?" He almost smiled. "I don't want to adopt them. I need to." She exhaled, overwhelmed. "I don't know what we're walking into. Your father, he doesn't strike me as a man who gives up easily." "Rachel, listen to me." Gareth stood and cupped her face in his hands, drawing her eyes to his. "I don't care what he does to my money, or my reputation, or my company. He can tear down every empire I've built, and I'll build another from stone if I have to. But if he goes after you or the kids, I won't forgive myself." She pressed a hand over his. "And what if he goes after you?" He blinked. "What do you mean?" She swallowed hard. "What if he decides the only way to make you walk away is to take you down completely?" "Gareth, I saw your face last night. I know the law. I know rich people get away with things, but the world loves tearing down a billionaire more than it loves the truth." Gareth breathed deeply, lowering his forehead against hers. "We'll get ahead of him. We always do." "But what if this time we don't?" she whispered. He had no answer. That silence was enough. By afternoon, news vans lined the street outside their building. A reporter shouted questions as Gareth and Rachel lowered blinds and tried to keep the kids from looking out the window. Isaiah tugged on Gareth's shirt. "People with cameras are outside." "Are we in trouble?" "No," Gareth said gently, kneeling. "They just want to make noise." "Why?" Zoe asked, climbing onto his knee. "Because sometimes people chase stories they don't understand." "Are you going to jail?" Isaiah whispered. Rachel froze. Gareth cursed internally. "No," he said firmly. "I didn't do anything wrong." "Then why were you arrested?" Isaiah pressed. Gareth hesitated. Rachel stepped in, voice soft and steady. "Because someone lied, baby. And we're working to fix it." Isaiah frowned. "Did they lie because of us?" Rachel's heart broke in slow motion. "Never because of you." Gareth lifted both children into his arms. This family is the best thing that ever happened to me. Don't ever think you're the reason bad things happen. Isaiah leaned into him slowly, trustingly. That trust was a weight Gareth felt in his bones. But after the kids went upstairs, Rachel lingered in the kitchen. She tried to steady her breathing. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Rachel, Gareth asked quietly, "What's wrong?" She looked at him with a kind of pain he wasn't prepared for. "I just realized something." "What?" "No matter how much we love each other, we don't come from the same kind of world. And your father knows exactly where to hit us because of that." Gareth stepped closer. "Rachel, we can create our own world, but we don't live in our own world," she snapped. Not in anger, but heartbreak. "We live in his world, a world that looks at me and sees a black woman who doesn't belong in your story, a world that looks at my kids and sees baggage, a world that thinks I'm a mistake you made in a moment of rebellion. That's not, you know it's true." He didn't argue. He couldn't. Not when the world had proven her right again and again. Rachel lowered her voice. "I'm scared he's going to take everything from you, until all that's left is regret." Gareth took her hands. "I could lose everything and still never regret you." Her lips trembled. "Promise me you won't let him turn you into someone you're not." He hesitated, and that hesitation cut her deeper than anything Richard Edward could have said. "You're already thinking like him," she whispered. "Planning moves, anticipating attacks." "Gareth, that's not love. That's survival. I'm trying to protect you." "I know, but protection changes people. It hardens them. I don't want to lose the man who knelt with shaking hands under lantern lights." Gareth pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. Too tightly, as if she might disappear. "You won't," he breathed. "I swear you won't." But somewhere inside, a fear he'd been denying stirred awake. That evening, while Rachel put the kids to bed, Gareth stood at the window watching the reporters still waiting. His reflection stared back at him, haunted, determined, exhausted. The first crack had already formed. Not between him and Rachel, but within himself. He had promised to fight for his family. He hadn't realized that fight might change him into someone he didn't recognize. As he reached into his pocket, fingers brushing the ruined proposal ring, he understood something razor sharp. To protect the family he wanted so desperately, he might have to become a man his father wouldn't predict. A man capable of things he once believed were beneath him. A man who could stand in the dark, if the dark was the only place he could win. Behind him, Rachel's voice carried softly from the hallway as she whispered a lullaby to Zoe. It was the kind of sound that made the world feel gentle. Gareth closed his eyes. He wasn't sure how much longer they'd have gentle. Morning sunlight poured into the apartment like it didn't know how broken the previous night had been. Rachel woke first, instinctively reaching for the other side of the bed. Cold sheets greeted her. Gareth was gone. She found him in the living room, still wearing yesterday's clothes, elbows on his knees, a man carved from exhaustion. "Did you sleep?" she whispered. He didn't lift his head, didn't want to. Rachel walked to him slowly, like approaching something fragile, because she knew he was. "Talk to me." Gareth looked up, eyes rimmed red, not from crying but from fighting it. "I need to do something today, and you're not going to like it." "Then tell me anyway." He hesitated, and in that silence, she braced herself. Gareth only hesitated when the truth cut sharpest. "I'm going to meet with someone," he finally said. "Someone who can help us. Help keep the kids safe. Help stop my father." Rachel's stomach tightened. "Who?" "A man named Thomas Reeves." Her brows pinched. And what does he do? He finds things, Gareth said carefully. Information. Leverage. She stared at him. You mean a fixer? He didn't deny it. Gareth. Her voice went soft with dread. Your father is already dragging you toward darkness. Don't take the next step yourself. I'm not becoming him, but you're thinking like him. He didn't argue, because it was true. Rachel sank onto the couch beside him. Before we became us, I told myself I'd never let a man pull me into chaos again. And now it's happening. But this time, it's not because he left. It's because he stayed. Gareth took her hands gently. I'm doing this for you. For the kids. Her eyes softened with a sadness deeper than fear. What if saving us means losing the man I fell in love with? He closed his fingers around hers, warm, steady, desperate. Then tell me how to protect us without becoming someone you fear. Rachel didn't answer right away. She looked at him long, like she was memorizing his face, searching for the man beneath the stress and fury. Promise me one thing, she said at last. Anything. Don't lie to me. He nodded slowly, throat tight. Okay. But he didn't promise more than that. He couldn't. Gareth left before the kids woke. He scribbled a note for Isaiah and Zoe, something small and soft. Back soon. Be good for Mom. I love you both. He drove across the city toward an old industrial block by the river, where men like Thomas Reeves worked in shadow. The building was a forgotten warehouse, windows covered in metal mesh. Gareth knocked twice on a steel door. It opened just long enough for someone to wave him in. Thomas sat behind a scratched wooden desk, cigarette burning beside him. He was in his 50s, thick-shouldered with eyes like cold gravel. You've got 10 minutes, Thomas said. Start talking. Gareth didn't waste time. I need information on my father's movements. I need to know if he's planning anything else. Any threats, any leverage, any connections he's calling on. Thomas smirked. Rich men always assume they can outmaneuver their daddies. It's cute. Gareth's jaw clenched. This isn't a game. He's threatened my family. He didn't threaten you, Thomas said bluntly. He promised you a war. Those are different things. Gareth stiffened. Can you help me or not? That depends. Thomas flicked ash into a dish. How far are you willing to go? Gareth didn't breathe for a moment. Then, far enough. Thomas studied him, eyes narrowing. Careful. Men who say that end up buried by their own decisions. Gareth leaned forward, voice low. My father is relentless. He will keep pushing until he breaks something. I won't let it be Rachel or the kids. So if you're going to lecture me about morality, save it. I'm not here for your conscience. Thomas let out a laugh that held no real humor. Good. Conscience is expensive anyway. He slid a card across the desk. I'll start digging. When I find something, you'll know. Gareth pressed payment onto the table. Find it fast. As Gareth left the warehouse, a thought clawed at him. Rachel wouldn't forgive him for this, but he wasn't sure forgiveness mattered more than safety. Back home, Rachel bundled the kids into the car. She'd promised them a movie day, something normal, something grounding, but she could feel their eyes on her in the rearview mirror, searching her expression. Zoe leaned forward. Mommy, are we going to be okay? Rachel forced a soft smile. Yes, baby. But Isaiah, older, more intuitive, narrowed his eyes. You didn't sound sure. Rachel inhaled shakily. Children knew too much, saw too much, especially children who'd already been abandoned by one parent. She reached back, squeezing his hand. We're going to be okay, because we're together. And we're strong. And Gareth loves you both more than anything. Isaiah didn't let go. He looked scared last night. He was. Her voice cracked slightly. Adults get scared too, even the strong ones. Is he in trouble? Yes, she admitted. But trouble doesn't mean defeat. Isaiah stared out the window for a long time before whispering, I don't want to lose him. Rachel swallowed hard. Neither do I. When Gareth returned that afternoon, the apartment was quiet, except the faint hum of cartoons from the living room. Rachel was in the kitchen stirring pasta. She wasn't really cooking something she always did when anxious. He leaned against the doorway. I'm back. She didn't look up. Did you meet him? Yes. And? He hesitated. Her shoulders tensed. He remembered what she asked of him. Don't lie to me. He's going to dig into my father's movements, Gareth said. He'll send word when he knows something. Rachel closed her eyes. So it's done. For now. She finally faced him. Her eyes were tired, not angry. And somehow that hurt more. Is this who we'll become? She whispered. A couple who hides in shadows, who makes decisions in fear, who waits for attacks. No, Gareth said firmly, stepping closer. This is who we are right now, because your safety matters more than my pride. That's not what I'm afraid of, she murmured. What then? She set the spoon down, hands trembling. I'm afraid that every time you choose to fight him, you lose a piece of yourself, and you don't see it happening. Gareth reached for her, but she stepped back, not rejecting him, just giving herself space to breathe. Do you think I'm becoming like him? He asked quietly. She didn't answer quickly, and that slow silence cut deeper than any accusation. Finally, she said, I think you're on a path he designed, and he knows exactly how far you'll go. Gareth's chest tightened. I won't let him win. Winning isn't the danger, she whispered. Becoming him is. He closed the space between them, gently taking her face in both hands. Rachel, look at me. She did. I am not my father. I won't become him. Not in choices. Not in heart. Not ever. Her voice broke. Promise me. He pressed his forehead to hers. I swear. She finally let herself lean into him, and Gareth held her like a man holding the center of his universe. That night, long after the kids were asleep and the city softened into quiet, Gareth stepped onto the balcony. The wind was cold, sharp, clean. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. We need to talk. Alone. R.E. Gareth's blood went cold. His father hadn't contacted him directly in months, not since he threatened to correct Gareth's mistakes. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a move. He pocketed the phone and went inside. Rachel curled on the bed, watching him with half-lidded eyes. Everything okay? He forced a small smile, said the words she needed to hear. Yeah. Everything's fine. But the moment he turned away, guilt hit him like a wave. He had lied, not outright, but enough. He crawled into bed beside her. She laid her head against his chest, trusting him completely. And Gareth realized he was already crossing lines he promised he wouldn't. He stroked her hair, memorizing the weight of her in his arms, trying to imprint her warmth onto his skin, because tomorrow he would meet Richard Edward, alone, unarmed, and without Rachel's blessing. He just prayed she would forgive him for the things he had not yet done. Gareth left before sunrise. He moved quietly, dressed in dark clothes, the apartment still and heavy. He paused at the bedroom door, watching Rachel sleep beside the faint glow slipping through the curtains. Her hand rested on the empty space where he'd lain hours earlier. Even in sleep, she reached for him. If she wakes and finds me gone. He swallowed hard. He couldn't think about that now. He had made the choice the moment he answered his father's message. Gareth stepped out. The Edward estate sat on the outskirts of Chicago, like a monument to old-world arrogance, Acres of sculpted gardens, columns tall enough to hold up heaven, and windows that watched the world with cold, calculating eyes. Gareth had grown up here, walking hallways lined with portraits of pale faces and sharper smiles, each ancestor more ruthless than the last. It felt smaller now. Or maybe he had simply outgrown its lies. Richard Edward waited in the greenhouse at the back of the property, where exotic plants thrived in warmth and controlled perfection. Gareth pushed the door open, the humid air settling on his skin like a warning. His father stood beside a row of orchids, pruning shears in hand. Not turning, not greeting, just slicing the perfect edge off a leaf. "You came," Richard said. "I'm not here for you," Gareth replied. "I'm here because you crossed a line." Richard finally turned. His eyes pale blue, sharp as broken ice, studied Gareth with an unsettling calm. "Everything I've ever done, I've done for the Edward name. For you." Gareth let out a bitter laugh. "Don't pretend this is about me." "No," Richard agreed. "It's about her." The greenhouse suddenly felt too warm. "Rachel is none of your business," Gareth said. Richard tilted his head. "She became my business when you decided to integrate her into your life." A beat of silence. The word hung between them like poison. "You mean because she's black?" Gareth said, voice low. "I mean because she's not one of us," Richard answered without shame. "Not from our world. Not raised with our expectations. Not equipped for the life you were groomed for. The children. Don't you dare talk about them. They are not yours," Richard said softly. "They never will be." Gareth took a step forward, fists clenched. "Say their names." Richard's brows rose amused. "Why, to validate your fantasy of fatherhood." "They're someone else's responsibility, Gareth. They are burdens you voluntarily strapped to your back. And when they pull you into ruin, don't expect the Edward family to throw you a rope. That's enough. No, son." Richard's voice dropped into something colder. "This is the beginning." Gareth forced himself to breathe. Anger was exactly what his father wanted. Rage made men sloppy. Gareth wouldn't give him that satisfaction. "You sent the police," Gareth said. "You leaked a fake financial trail and framed me." Richard wiped the soil from his gloves. "Of course I did. You were walking off a cliff. I simply tried to stop you. By destroying me publicly," Gareth snapped. "Better a public bruise than a private annihilation," Richard said simply. "But that woman, her name is Rachel, is not capable of surviving the world you live in. You saw what one headline did to her. That headline didn't break her," Gareth hissed. "It terrified her." "But she's standing." "For how long?" Richard asked, almost bored. "And what about the children? You think society will embrace a billionaire who adopts 2 black children, not of his bloodline? You think the investors, the board, the shareholders will applaud your heart?" Gareth's jaw tightened. "You know the world," Richard continued. "You know exactly how it judges. A white man with a black woman. Perhaps forgivable. But a white man taking responsibility for another man's abandoned children. It undermines power. It weakens legacy. You are supposed to be the heir, Gareth, but you're throwing it away for sentiment." Gareth stepped closer, eyes burning. "I don't need your empire." Richard smiled faintly. "Then why are you here?" Gareth froze. Why was he here? To warn, to threaten, to beg. Richard's gaze sharpened. "You came because you know I'm right. You came because you know she's a liability you cannot afford." Gareth felt something cold crawl down his spine. "I came to tell you to stay away from her, from the children, From us. Richard laughed softly. You truly believe I'm your enemy. Aren't you? No, Richard said. I'm your father, the only one trying to save you, by tearing apart the people I love. Richard moved past him, brushing a hand along the orchids. The sooner you realize love has limits, the sooner you'll learn survival. Gareth's voice cracked. I'm not you. Richard paused. Not yet. Gareth turned to leave. He didn't trust himself to stay any longer, but Richard's final words chased him out the door. Ask her about the night her husband left, Richard said softly. Ask her what she isn't telling you. Gareth stopped. Turned. What did you say? Richard lifted a single eyebrow. You think I launched a war on a whim? No. I did my homework. Ask her. She knows. Knows what? But Richard simply returned to pruning the orchids, dismissing him. Find out. Then come back. We'll talk again. Gareth left the greenhouse with a chill under his skin that no sunlight could warm. Back home, Rachel was slicing strawberries for Zoe in the kitchen when she heard the door open. She turned quickly, relief washing over her. You're home. But the relief faded when she saw his face. What happened? She whispered. Gareth, what did he say? He didn't answer immediately. He studied her too closely, too quietly, and something inside her chest tightened. Did you fight? She asked, stepping toward him. But Gareth took a step back. Rachel froze. Gareth. His voice was steady, too steady. I need to ask you something. She felt the ground tilt beneath her. Okay. He swallowed. The night Marcus left you. What happened? Her breath hitched. Why would you ask that? Because my father said you know something. Gareth said. Something you haven't told me. Rachel set the knife down very slowly. Your father is trying to get inside your head. Maybe Gareth said. But I need to hear the truth from you. She shook her head. Gareth, please. Don't let him do this to us. I'm not, he said. I'm asking you because I need to know if he's lying. Rachel closed her eyes. She looked suddenly small, tired, older, and heartbreakingly human. Why now? She whispered. After everything we've been through, you're asking me about Marcus. Because your father questioned my past. I just want the truth. You already have it. Then tell me again. Rachel stepped back as if he'd struck her. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You promised not to let him twist you. This isn't twisting, Gareth insisted. This is clarity. No. Rachel shook her head, choking on tears. This is the first crack. He reached for her. Rachel. No. She backed away. If you want to know what happened that night, I'll tell you. But not like this. Then how? When you're you again. Her voice broke. Not when you're speaking with his voice. Gareth's heart splintered. He hadn't realized how much fear had already seeped into him. Rachel wiped her eyes. Let me put the kids down for a nap. Then I'll tell you everything. The truth. The whole truth. Rachel, I'm sorry. I know. She swallowed. But sorry doesn't stop the damage once it starts. Later, when the apartment fell quiet and sunlight dipped behind buildings, Rachel sat on the couch, knees drawn up, hands clasped tightly, as if holding herself together. Gareth sat across from her, unable to breathe. After a long silence, she finally whispered, The night Marcus left wasn't the first time he tried. Gareth's blood chilled. Rachel continued, voice trembling. He didn't walk out because he was overwhelmed, or because he was depressed. He left because he thought Isaiah wasn't his. Gareth blinked. What Rachel nodded painfully. He accused me of cheating, said Isaiah didn't look enough like him, said he didn't want to raise a child who wasn't his blood. Gareth's stomach twisted. Rachel. He left. Came back. Left again. That last night, he told me the kids were weighing him down, that I was weighing him down. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand, and I begged him not to go, because I didn't want to raise two babies alone, because I was scared, and because some broken part of me still hoped he'd see us as worth staying for. Gareth felt something inside him fracture. Rachel looked up, meeting his eyes with heartbreaking clarity. I didn't tell you, because I didn't want you to see me the way he saw me, like someone who drives men away. Gareth's chest ached. Rachel. No. But now she whispered, your father says one sentence and suddenly you're looking at me differently, questioning me, wondering what I hid. And I realized. Her voice cracked. Maybe Marcus was right about one thing: I ruin good men. Gareth stood abruptly. Stop. Don't say that. Don't you dare. Rachel shook her head violently. Then, don't make me relive his accusations. Don't make me defend my worth to another man. Not you. And in that moment, Gareth understood. His father hadn't targeted his finances. He hadn't targeted his reputation. He had targeted the one thing Gareth couldn't protect: Rachel's heart. And he had hit the bullseye. Gareth sank to his knees in front of her, hands trembling as he reached for hers. Rachel, listen to me. I don't care what that man said. I don't care about your past. I care about you, about the kids, about the life we're building. You doubted me, she whispered. I doubted my father, he corrected softly. I doubted myself. But I never doubted you. Rachel broke into a sob, leaning forward as he pulled her into his arms. He held her tightly, burying his face in her shoulder, hating himself for letting his father wedge a blade between them. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I won't let him come between us again. Ever. But even as he said it, he knew the war had only begun. Rain began before dawn, tapping the windows in delicate, nervous fingers. Gareth woke first, tangled in sheets he didn't remember pulling over himself. Rachel lay curled beside him, her face resting against his shoulder, as if during the night she'd drifted toward him out of instinct. A fragile truce, a fragile peace. He brushed a thumb along her cheekbone. Last night's cracks still lingered in her expression. Exhaustion hurt, but also something stronger. She had told him the truth. She had bared old wounds he had never deserved to touch. And she had cried into his chest until sleep overtook exhaustion. He kissed the corner of her forehead. I'm here, he whispered, even though she couldn't hear it. But his phone charging on the nightstand vibrated with an incoming text. Reeves. We need to meet. Urgent. Gareth felt the shift, like the ground beneath him tilted a few degrees. Rachel stirred. What time is it early? He tucked hair behind her ear, gentle. Go back to sleep. I'll be right here. But he wasn't right there. Not even close. He slipped out quietly, showered with quick, restless motions, and left a note on the kitchen counter next to the coffee maker, went to check on something at the office. Back soon. I love you. He hesitated before writing. I love you. Not because it wasn't true, because it had never been more true. But last night had shown him how fear could twist even the strongest love into doubt. He left it anyway. Thomas Reeves insisted on meeting at a small diner off the highway. Not the sort of place anyone from Gareth's world would recognize. Grease-stained menus, chipped mugs, a neon sign flickering open, even though anyone inside could tell the place was falling apart. Thomas sat in a booth at the back, sipping black coffee. When Gareth slid into the opposite seat, Reeves didn't greet him, didn't smile. didn't even nod. Instead, he pushed a thick manila file across the table. "What is this?" Gareth asked. "Proof." Reeves leaned back. "And a problem." Gareth opened the file slowly, bracing himself. Inside, he expected spreadsheets, bank transfers, a leaked email, something mere reputation could survive. He did not expect photographs. Not of Rachel, not of the kids, not of his penthouse, but of a warehouse, and of dangerous men meeting with his father's right-hand advisor. "What am I looking at?" Gareth murmured. "Your father's not just using influence or leverage anymore," Thomas said, voice low. "He's hiring muscle." Gareth looked up. For what, Thomas slid another picture forward. A black SUV parked outside the kids' school. A man leaning against it, hands in pockets, gaze locked on the entrance. He had someone watching the children. Ice flooded Gareth's spine. "Are you sure?" His voice was barely audible. Thomas nodded. "I had a tail on your father's fixer. He met these guys 3 times last week. Each time he handed over your schedule. Rachel's. And the kids." Gareth gripped the edge of the table so hard his knuckles went white. "Why? What does he want them for?" Thomas hesitated. "You need to understand the kind of man your father has become." "No," Gareth snapped. "What does he want with my family?" Thomas leaned in. "Pressure. If leaking false charges didn't break your relationship, if humiliating her didn't scare her away, he'll escalate." Gareth felt the world constrict around him. The diner's chatter blurred into white noise. Escalate how, he asked, though he already feared the answer. "Kidnapping," Thomas said. "Scare tactics. A staged threat. He let that settle. Or something worse if he's desperate enough." Gareth's chest tightened so fast it hurt. "He wouldn't." "He would," Thomas interrupted. "Your father believes legacy is worth any sacrifice, including lives." Gareth pushed the file away as if burned. "My God," he whispered. Thomas's voice softened, maybe for the first time. "You need to warn her." Gareth shook his head. "No, I need to stop him. You can't stop a man like your father alone." "I don't care," Gareth said, rising. "I won't let him touch them." Thomas sighed. "If you confront him angry, you'll lose." "I'm not confronting him," Gareth said. "I'm ending this." Thomas reached out and grabbed his wrist. "Then listen carefully, because what I found goes deeper than men outside a school." Gareth froze. Thomas pulled out a thin folder, different, marked with a single name. Marcus Williams. Gareth's breath left him. "What about him?" he asked slowly. Thomas tapped the folder. "Your father didn't just look into Rachel. He tracked Marcus down." Gareth's stomach twisted. Why Thomas didn't answer. He simply opened the file to the first page. A hospital intake form. 6 months old. Patient, Marcus D. Williams. Diagnosed major head trauma. Blunt force impact. Critical condition. Unknown assailant. Gareth blinked. What happened to him? Thomas gave him a long, pitying look. He was beaten. Badly. Doesn't remember who did it. But according to the police report, Thomas paused. He told officers he thought it was connected to Rachel. Or to you. Gareth felt a cold weight sink into him. You think my father? I don't think, Thomas said. I know. Why? Gareth demanded. Why would he touch Marcus? Because Marcus was the weak link, Thomas said. A liability. A man your father believed could be removed. Gareth stumbled back. No. No. If this is true, it is true, Thomas said quietly. Your father is playing long, dirty, and deep. And now those men in the pictures. He tapped the file. They're his next move. Gareth's pulse roared in his ears. And there's one more thing Thomas said. Gareth closed his eyes. Please don't. But Thomas slid one final photo across the table. A picture of Rachel entering her workplace. And behind her, a second SUV. And a figure following her into the building. Gareth didn't breathe. When was this taken? He demanded. This morning, Thomas said. 10 minutes ago. Gareth didn't remember driving home. The world narrowed to one singular truth. Rachel was in danger. The kids were in danger. Right now. Rain pounded the windshield as he sped through the city, heart hammering hard enough to bruise bone. Every red light was a curse. Every car in his way, an obstacle he wanted to drive through. He called Rachel's phone. No answer. He called again. Still no answer. Please, please pick up, he whispered hoarsely. By the time he reached the apartment building, he wasn't running. He was sprinting, shoving through the doors, ignoring the startled doorman's greeting. He burst into the apartment. Rachel! He shouted. Rachel! Where are you? Silence. His chest constricted. Rachel. Then Gareth. Her voice came from the hallway. She stepped out, drying her hands on a towel, confusion softening her features. What's wrong? You look like you... He didn't let her finish. He grabbed her, pulling her into him so fiercely she gasped. Are you okay? He choked out. Did anyone follow you? Did you see anyone near the building? Did anyone talk to you? She pulled back, stunned. Gareth, you're scaring me. He cupped her face with shaking hands. Rachel, listen to me carefully. My father is not just interfering. He's hiring people, dangerous people. Thomas tracked them. They were outside the kids' school. And someone followed you this morning. Rachel's blood ran cold. What? He's escalating. He had Marcus hurt. He's not playing games anymore. He's going after anyone he thinks will make me break. Rachel took a shaky breath. The kids, where are they? In their room, she whispered. They're drawing. He exhaled a shaky breath. Relief. Barely. She looked up at him, tears brimming. What do we do? Gareth didn't hesitate. You're not going to work. The kids aren't going to school. We stay together. We stay inside. And I protect you. Her voice trembled. But how long can we hide? As long as it takes. Rachel grabbed his hands. Gareth, your father won't stop. If he's already gone this far, then I go further, Gareth said. I will not let him touch you. I swear it. Rachel shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. I don't want you to lose yourself. I'd rather lose myself. Gareth whispered, then lose you. She pressed her forehead to his. Then we fight. Together. He closed his eyes. But he didn't tell her the truth. That fighting together might not be enough. That the file Thomas gave him held a truth he hadn't revealed yet. A truth that would break her heart and destroy what little peace they clung to. Because the last page in the file wasn't about Marcus, or the children, or even Gareth. It was about her. A secret Rachel didn't know someone had found. The apartment felt too quiet. Not peaceful quiet in the way a forest stills before a predator steps into view. Gareth stood by the window watching the street below with a vigilance that bordered on obsession. Every car that slowed made his shoulders tense. Every stranger walking past made his breath shorten. Behind him, Rachel paced the living room, fingers trembling at her sides. She'd been trying to stay calm for the kids' sake, but the fear had settled under her skin, pulsing like a second heartbeat. Gareth, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Tell me everything Thomas found. He didn't turn around. Rachel swallowed. I know you're hiding something. Still, he didn't move. Look at me. she begged. Gareth finally turned. The look in his eyes, raw, tormented, made Rachel's chest tighten. "There's something in the file," he said quietly. "Something about you." Her breath caught. About me. What could he step closer, reaching into his pocket? When he pulled out a single folded page, Rachel's pulse stumbled. "I didn't want you to see this yet," he said, "but keeping it from you would be worse." He handed her the page. Rachel opened it. Her world tilted. Restraining order. 2019. Filed by Rachel Marie Thompson. Now Edward. Against Jonathan Pierce. Status closed. Reason for closure. Victim unreachable. Rachel's breath turned shallow. Jonathan Pierce. The name she had spent 4 years trying to forget. A name she refused to speak out loud. A name she prayed Isaiah and Zoe would never hear. She sank onto the couch, gripping the edge of the paper. "How did he find this?" she whispered. "Thomas traced the men my father hired," Gareth said. "They weren't just gathering intel on me. They were looking into you. Deeply." Rachel's voice trembled. "Your father thinks this matters." "He thinks anything that scares you matters," Gareth said. "He's looking for leverage, for something that could force you to leave me." A shiver ran through her. Then he chose the right thing. Gareth knelt in front of her, gripping her hands. "Rachel, look at me." She didn't. "Rachel," he said again, gently but firmly. Her eyes lifted, glossy and frightened. "You don't owe me an explanation," he said softly. "Not for your past. Not for surviving something." She shook her head. It wasn't just surviving. The room felt smaller, the air tighter. "What did he do to you?" Gareth asked, voice almost breaking. Rachel closed her eyes. For a moment, Gareth thought she wouldn't answer. But then she whispered, "Everything." She didn't cry. Not at first. Her voice remained eerily steady as she told Gareth what she had buried for years. Jonathan Pierce had been a volunteer at the shelter where she worked briefly after Zoe was born. Charming. Attentive. Too attentive. He helped carry groceries to her car. He offered to fix a leaky faucet in her apartment. He brought toys for Isaiah unasked. "I thought he was just kind," Rachel said. "Just lonely. Just someone trying to help." Gareth's fists tightened around air. But then he started showing up at the kids' daycare, asking the staff about them, asking where I lived, who I dated, where I went after work. She swallowed. And when I tried to distance myself, he didn't take it well. Gareth's jaw locked. "What did he do?" Rachel stared at the wall, voice hollow. "He followed me, took pictures, left gifts on my doorstep. Once he waited outside my building at 2 a.m. When I told him to leave, he said he couldn't. That he loved me. That he was meant to be part of our family." Gareth's breath stuttered. "Rachel, I filed a restraining order," she continued. "But one night he broke into my apartment while the kids were sleeping. He didn't hurt them. He didn't touch me. But he sat in the dark and waited for me to get home." Gareth went still. When I walked inside, she whispered. He stood up and said, "You're late." Like we were married, like I owed him an explanation. Gareth felt something inside him snap. "Why didn't you tell me any of this?" Rachel finally met his eyes, her voice cracking. "Because I didn't want you to look at me the way he did. Like I was something to fix, something weak, something that needed saving." Gareth cupped her face, thumb brushing her trembling cheek. "No. Never. You're the strongest woman I've ever known." She shook her head. "He wasn't why Marcus left, but he made everything worse. When Marcus found out some man was stalking me, He accused me of bringing it on myself. Said I was flirting with anyone who smiled at me. Said I wanted the attention. Gareth closed his eyes. And when Jonathan realized I had no one left to stand between him and us, he went deeper. Closer. She crumpled. I moved without telling anyone. Changed my number. Switched jobs. I prayed he'd never find us again. That's why I was terrified when those reporters showed up, when the police came, when your father's name was suddenly everywhere. I thought, what if Jonathan sees me? What if he comes back? Gareth pulled her into his arms so tightly he was shaking. You're safe, he whispered fiercely. You're safe with me. But even as he said it, a knock echoed at the door, sharply, too sharply. Rachel flinched. Gareth rose immediately. Stay with the kids. Rachel's breath hitched. Who is it? I don't know. His voice dropped into something cold and lethal. But I'll find out. He walked toward the door, every step heavy, measured, prepared for war. He peered through the peephole. A delivery man stood outside, holding a large brown package. No visible threat. No suspicious movement. Gareth exhaled slowly and opened the door just enough to speak. Delivery for a Rachel Thompson, the man asked. Gareth froze. Rachel Thompson. Her maiden name. No one used that name anymore. No one except... Who sent this? Gareth asked sharply. The man shrugged. Package was already paid for. Just doing my job. Gareth took it with cautious hands. The box was too light, too quiet, too ominous. He locked the door and set the package on the table. Rachel walked over timidly. What is it? Back up, Gareth murmured. He grabbed a kitchen knife, sliced the tape, and opened the flaps. Inside was a single envelope. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. Gareth picked it up carefully. There was no return address. Just one word in bold, deliberate handwriting. Rachel. She reached for it before she could stop herself. Gareth grabbed her wrist gently. Let me. No, she whispered. It's addressed to me. I need to see. Gareth hesitated, then let go. Rachel opened the envelope with trembling fingers. A single photograph slid out. She picked it up, and the color drained from her face. Gareth snatched it before it hit the floor. His pulse stopped. The photograph showed Rachel walking the kids into the grocery store 2 days earlier, but the detail that turned Gareth's blood to ice. In the background, leaning casually against a lamppost half hidden by a hood, a man stared directly at the camera. Jonathan Pierce. Alive. Back in Chicago. Watching them. Rachel pressed a hand to her mouth. No. No. This can't be real. Gareth looked at the bottom of the photograph. A sentence was scrawled there in ink. I finally found you. Rachel stumbled back as if struck. Gareth? He caught her before she fell. She clung to him, shaking violently. He's here, she whispered. He's here, Gareth. What do we do? Gareth held her tightly, his heartbeat pounding against her cheek. We don't run, he said softly, fiercely. We don't hide. His jaw tightened like steel. We end this. Rachel shook her head, tears falling. You can't fight him. He's not normal. He's obsessed. He's unpredictable. You don't know what he'll do. Gareth pressed his forehead against hers. And he doesn't know what I'm capable of when it comes to protecting you. She closed her eyes, voice breaking. I don't want to lose you. You won't, he whispered. But he didn't believe it. Not fully. Not anymore. Because now he wasn't just fighting his father. He was fighting a man who had chased Rachel across state lines. A man who had broken into her home. A man who believed she belonged to him. A man whose eyes in that photograph promised obsession, not fear. And Gareth Edward, billionaire businessman, protector of the family he built from love, was about to become something he'd never been before. A hunter. Night pressed against the windows like a warning. The apartment lights were dimmed not by choice, but because bright spaces made Rachel feel exposed, visible from the street, vulnerable to watching eyes. Gareth turned off the final lamp, the room falling into soft shadows. Rachel sat on the couch, arms wrapped around herself, the photograph of Jonathan Pierce lying on the table like a live wire. She hadn't touched it since it arrived. She hadn't looked at it again either. But the image lingered in her mind, his eyes cold and claiming, staring straight into the camera. "Do you think he's close?" she whispered. Gareth stood near the window, scanning the street for the 10th time. "I think he's bold enough to want us to believe he is." He didn't add the rest. Bold men escalate fast. The kids were asleep in the next room, the faint sound of Zoe's soft breathing drifting through the slightly cracked door. Gareth had insisted on keeping it open. "I need to hear them." And Rachel hadn't argued. She watched him now, the way tension pulled his shoulders tight, the way his hand instinctively hovered near the small of his back, where he concealed a weapon he hoped he wouldn't have to use. Seeing him like this carved fear into her ribs. "Come sit with me," she said gently. He hesitated, still watching the street. Then he finally turned and crossed the room. Rachel shifted, making space for him, but instead of settling beside her, he knelt in front of the couch, resting his hands on her knees. "Talk to me," he murmured. "Tell me how scared you are. Don't protect me from it." Rachel let out a trembling breath. "I'm terrified." He nodded slowly. "So am I." Something cracked open between them. Vulnerability, fierce and raw. Rachel cupped his jaw with both hands. "Gareth, if Jonathan is here, you can't face him alone. Promise me you won't." He dropped his forehead to her knee. "I don't know what I'll do when he shows up. I only know I'll do anything to keep you safe." She felt him trembling, subtle, but there. "Look at me," she whispered. He lifted his head. "I would rather be scared with you," she said, "than safe while you lose yourself." He closed his eyes for a beat, absorbing her words like oxygen. But then, his phone vibrated. A single text. "Unknown number, nice apartment. The kids' room is a little pink for my taste." Rachel's blood went cold. Gareth lunged to his feet so fast, the couch jolted. "Stay here." "Gareth, stay with the kids." He repeated, voice sharp, with barely contained panic. She grabbed his wrist. "Don't leave me alone right now." He stilled. That single sentence shattered something inside him. He put both hands on her shoulders. "I'm not leaving. I'm checking the hall. I just need to make sure he's not inside the building." Rachel nodded shakily. Gareth slipped his gun into the back waistband of his jeans and walked toward the front door. His steps were silent, controlled, deadly. He peeked through the peephole. Nothing. He unlocked the door slowly, silence on the other side. He stepped into the hall, scanning left, then right. Empty. But the text. The text meant Jonathan either had eyes inside the building or was bluffing to provoke fear. Either way, it worked. Gareth re-entered the apartment, locking the door behind him. Rachel still sat on the couch, stiff as stone. "Was he there?" she whispered. "No." Her breathing didn't ease. Gareth returned to her side. "Rachel, listen to me. He wants to scare you. This is what stalkers do. They insert themselves into your mind before they insert themselves into your house." "He's already in my mind," she whispered. "He's always been there. I just buried him under everything good you gave me." Gareth cupped her cheek. "We will bury him for real this time." But something flickered in his eyes, something she hadn't seen before. Something dark, Gareth, she began cautiously. He looked away first. I'm going to find him. Rachel's throat tightened. No. I have to. No, she repeated, voice shaking. That's exactly what he wants. He's drawing you out. He wants you desperate and reckless. He wants you so focused on hunting him that you pull away from me, from the kids, from everything that anchors you. This time, Gareth didn't argue. That was worse. Gareth, please look at me. He did. She saw the man she knew, a protector, a lover, a man who had once knelt under lantern lights to ask for a future. But layered over him now was the man. Circumstance was shaping a man ready to cross lines for her, for their family. A man ready to become dangerous. A man who could kill. Tell me what you're planning, Rachel whispered. Gareth inhaled slowly. Thomas found an address. An old rental property under Jonathan's name. He collected surveillance from the area. Rachel's heart dropped. You already know where he is. Yes. Gareth. I need to end this. She stepped close, gripping his shirt. End it how? His silence answered. Rachel's breath broke. Gareth. No, you can't. I can, he said softly. And I will. You're not a killer. I'm a father, he whispered. I'm your partner. I'm the man Jonathan wants to destroy. Those roles don't leave space for hesitation. She shook her head desperately. Killing him won't free me. It won't erase the fear. But it will remove the threat. Or it will land you in prison. She shot back. And then, what? What happens to me? To the kids. He wins. Gareth, he wins. Gareth closed his eyes, breathing hard. Rachel reached up and framed his face with trembling hands. You saved me the day you walked into our lives, not because you fought for us, but because you chose us. Don't lose that part of you. Don't lose the part I fell in love with. Her voice softened, breaking. Don't lose yourself to a man who doesn't deserve an inch of your soul. Gareth let out a shuddered breath. I don't know how to protect you without going too far. Rachel pressed her forehead to his. We protect each other. That's how. He wrapped his arms around her, burying his face in the crook of her neck. She felt the tremor in him, the war between rage and tenderness. But then, a crash sounded from outside. Glass shattering. Rachel flinched violently. Gareth grabbed her, moving her behind him. Stay back. He approached the window cautiously. The sound had come from the alley behind the building. He looked down. A brick lay on the ground. Beside it, a piece of paper flapped in the wind. Gareth's heart stopped when he read the words through the glass. Open the door. I want to see the kids. Rachel's hand flew to her mouth. Zoe whimpered from the hallway. Mommy, Daddy. Gareth turned instantly. Baby, it's okay. Go back to your room. Stay with your brother. But Zoe shook her head, tears already forming. Mommy's scared. Rachel sank to her knees, pulling Zoe into her arms. Isaiah appeared behind them, eyes wide and bright with fear he was trying to hide. What's happening? He asked. Gareth forced air into his lungs. Nothing. Someone threw trash at the window. It's fine. Isaiah didn't believe him. Neither did Rachel. Gareth knelt and put both hands on Isaiah's shoulders. Listen to me carefully. Take Zoe to your room. Lock the door. Do you know how to call 911? Isaiah nodded, jaw tight. Good. Do it if anything scares you. Don't wait. He ushered them toward the hallway. Rachel followed, but Gareth caught her arm gently. Rachel, he whispered. Jonathan is close. Maybe across the alley. Maybe in the building. I'm going to end this tonight. She grabbed his wrist. If you go alone, I will follow you. He blinked. Rachel, I won't let you walk into danger alone, she whispered. We go together, or we don't go at all. The room pulsed with tension, with fear, with love that burned like wildfire. Before Gareth could answer, his phone lit up again. Another text. I'm coming up. Gareth's blood iced. Rachel's breath hitched. And from the hallway, a slow, deliberate knock echoed at the front door. Not frantic, not rushed. A knock that said, I already know you're home. The knock hung in the air like a held breath. 3 slow taps, measured, deliberate. Rachel's fingers tightened around Gareth's wrist. She wasn't shaking, not anymore. Her fear had shifted into something sharper, steadier. A woman cornered who refused to break again. Gareth placed a hand over hers. Stay behind me. She shook her head. We do this together. The second knock came softer this time, mocking in its patience. Gareth moved silently toward the door. Every muscle tense, every sense sharpened. He glanced back once. Rachel stood in the hallway entrance, half hidden, but her eyes locked on him. A silent promise. I'm not leaving you. Behind her, the kid's door was closed, locked. The faint whisper of Isaiah comforting Zoe drifted through the gap under the frame like a prayer. Gareth reached the door. He didn't open it. Instead, he spoke through the wood voice, low and dangerous. Who's there? Silence. Then, a man's voice. Calm. Too calm. Gareth Edward. Rachel's heart stopped. Gareth's grip tightened on the doorknob until his knuckles blanched. Say your name. A pause long enough to raise every hair on Rachel's arms. Jonathan Pierce. Rachel pressed a hand over her mouth, stifling a gasp. Gareth didn't blink, didn't breathe. He turned the deadbolt without a sound. Then he opened the door only 2 inches, just enough to see. Jonathan stood in the hallway, and he wasn't anything like the man in Rachel's memory. He looked cleaner, more polished. His hair neatly trimmed, his jacket crisp, his posture almost casual. But his eyes were the same. Cold, hungry, unhinged beneath the surface. Jonathan smiled as if greeting an old friend. May I come in? Gareth stepped into the doorway, blocking the entrance completely. You're not coming anywhere near this family. Jonathan tilted his head. Funny, it's not your family. Gareth's jaw flexed. It is. Jonathan shrugged lightly, as if this were a philosophical debate. Maybe. But you don't get to erase history, Gareth. You don't get to replace a man's place in his own story. Rachel stepped forward before she could stop herself. The moment Jonathan saw her, his entire face changed. His expression softened. Like a man seeing the sun after years underground. Rachel. Her name left his lips like a prayer. Gareth's body moved instantly, blocking her with his arm. Don't speak to her. Jonathan ignored him. His gaze clung to Rachel, drinking her in. You look exactly the same, he murmured. I didn't think you would. I thought time would change you. But it didn't. You're still perfect. Rachel's breath hitched, memories clawing up her throat. Jonathan took a small step forward. Gareth shoved the door shut, that extra inch voice a growl. I said you're not coming in. Jonathan blinked once, then smiled, soft, knowing. Rachel told you I hurt her, didn't she? Gareth didn't answer. Jonathan sighed, running a hand through his hair. She always misunderstood me. I never meant to frighten her. I only wanted to protect her, to take care of them. Of all of you. All of us. Gareth echoed, eyes narrowing. Jonathan's smile widened, sickeningly gentle. Rachel, the kids. You. Gareth's skin went cold. Jonathan's gaze flickered between them, and something dark rippled across his face. Jealousy. Possession. Rage. It cracked his calm exterior. Do you really think you deserve her? Jonathan asked, voice thinning. A man like you, with your money, your perfect life. Rachel needed someone who understood suffering. Someone who... Enough. Gareth snapped. You don't get to talk about her. Jonathan's voice dropped to a soft, eerie whisper. She was mine. She was never yours, Rachel said suddenly. The hallway stilled. Jonathan froze, eyes widening with something close to heartbreak. Rachel. You didn't love me, she said quietly. You loved control. You loved being needed. You loved the idea of me. Jonathan swallowed. I brought you flowers. You followed me, she corrected. I protected you. You terrified me. Jonathan blinked slowly, as if trying to process the words. No. No. That's not right. I never meant to. You broke into my home. Rachel said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Jonathan's jaw clenched. I had to. You weren't answering. You were slipping away. Gareth stepped forward. She left because she was afraid of you. Jonathan's eyes snapped back to him, something feral flashing beneath the surface. She left because she was influenced. By who? Gareth asked. Jonathan's lips curled. You. Gareth's pulse thundered. Jonathan leaned closer to the small gap in the door. You think you saved her, but you're the one who ruined everything. Gareth's voice dropped to a lethal whisper. I'm giving you one chance to walk away. Jonathan's expression shifted again like a storm rolling under his skin. You won't shoot me, Jonathan said softly. Not with her watching. Not with the kids in the next room. Something flickered in Gareth's eyes. Jonathan saw it and smiled. See? Jonathan whispered. You're already losing. Gareth pushed the door harder, ready to slam it shut. Then everything happened in one breath. Jonathan lunged. His hand shot through the gap, grabbing the door, forcing it wider. The impact jolted Gareth backward. Rachel screamed. Gareth slammed his weight forward, trying to shove the door closed. But Jonathan was stronger than either of them expected. Rachel, Jonathan shouted, reaching inside fingers, grasping blindly for her. Don't let him turn you against me. I'm here to take you home. Gareth roared and drove his shoulder into the door. Jonathan growled, forcing it open another inch. She's not safe with you. Gareth slammed his forearm down onto Jonathan's arm. A sickening crack echoed in the hallway. Jonathan yelled in pain but didn't let go. Gareth saw red. He grabbed Jonathan by the wrist, twisted it hard, and smashed the door edge into Jonathan's forearm. Jonathan screamed, stumbling back. The door flew shut. Gareth deadbolted it instantly, chest heaving. Rachel stood, frozen hands trembling violently. Gareth turned to her, breath ragged. Are you okay? She nodded, though her eyes were wide and glassy. Then, a new sound, soft, terrifying. Jonathan laughing. The laugh echoed through the hallway, distorted by the door between them. You think a broken arm will stop me? He taunted. I waited 4 years. I can wait 4 more. But I always get what's mine. Rachel flinched. Gareth grabbed the intercom and barked into it. Security now. There's a man outside our door. Dangerous. Armed or unstable. Get up here immediately. Jonathan's voice lowered almost a whisper. You can't keep them locked away forever, Gareth. Eventually you'll leave. She'll leave. The kids will go to school, and I'll be right here. Gareth's hands trembled around the doorknob. He wanted to rip the door open, wanted to end this. But Rachel touched his back. Don't, she whispered. He wants you angry. Gareth turned into her arms, holding her so tightly she gasped. She buried her face in his chest, tears finally breaking free. Jonathan's footsteps faded slowly down the hallway leisurely, as if he hadn't just tried to force his way into their home. Security thundered up the stairs seconds later, but Gareth knew the truth. Jonathan wasn't gone. He was circling, waiting. Gareth held Rachel, whispering something he wasn't sure he believed. "I'll keep you safe." She pressed a shaking kiss against his throat. "We need help, Gareth. Real help. This isn't something we can manage alone." He closed his eyes, breathing her in. "I know. And your father?" She whispered, "How much of this does he know?" Gareth's jaw clenched. More than he should. Rachel cupped his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. "Then listen to me." He did. "We fight this together. But we don't fight blind." Her voice steadied with a strength he recognized, the same strength that had carried her through abandonment, fear, motherhood, and love. "We tell the police. We involve lawyers. We get protective details. And we expose every man who thinks he can own me." Gareth exhaled, torn between fury and relief. "I won't let him hurt you." "You won't," she murmured. "But not by turning into someone you'll regret." He rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Always," she breathed. Isaiah appeared in the hallway, teary-eyed. "Mom, Dad, what happened?" Gareth lifted him into his arms. "Nothing you need to be afraid of anymore." But as he said it, he knew it wasn't over. Jonathan had crossed their threshold. Richard Edward had set the board. And Gareth had just chosen a path that would force him to confront both men. Not as the heir, not as the billionaire, but as the father he had sworn he would become, a man willing to walk through darkness to protect the light he loved.